The year is 1830. The United States, a young nation, is finding its footing in a rapidly changing world. Echoes of its Revolutionary War remain, but the country now expands westward, driven by the promise of new opportunities and the belief in manifest destiny. It's an era of transition, streets alive with the sounds of progress, from the clatter of horse-drawn carriages to the hum of new machines. Towns grow, as do their inhabitants' dreams and aspirations. This bustling new Republic of America finds its voice through the written word. Newspapers, pamphlets, and books grow more accessible, spreading ideas and knowledge far and wide. The printing press is revolutionizing communication, as people share thoughts and stories like never before. Gaslight flickers in the evening gloom, the air thrums with the promise of industry and invention. Cities are bustling hubs of activity, where innovation and tradition coexist in a delicate balance. Yet, life remains deeply rooted in tradition, especially for young women like Emily Dickinson, born in quiet Amherst, Massachusetts. In such small towns, the pace of life is slower, and the expectations for women generally clear and unwavering. Dickinson's world, like the poetry she was destined to write, was a study in contrasts. She lived in a time when the roles of women remained strictly defined, yet she harbored a spirit that yearned for more. Her poetry reflects both this tension and the complexity of her inner life. For the belles of Amherst were expected to become wives, mothers, and homemakers, with lives confined within the walls of their homes. The domestic sphere was seen as their rightful place, a realm of lace and letters, their primary mission the nurture and support of their families. But the stirrings of social change were in the air. The earliest whispers of the women's rights movement were being heard, as bold women began to struggle for autonomy and recognition. Transcendentalism, a philosophical movement prizing individualism and intuition, was a talking point even in country towns, encouraging a new generation to question established norms. Its focus on self-reliance and personal freedom resonated with many, including Dickinson. Emily, with her inquisitive mind and unconventional spirit, was undoubtedly influenced by these currents of change. She found solace and inspiration in the natural world, often retreating to the fields and woods around her home to write and reflect, and there her poetry was born. She devoured books, explored nature's wonders, and cultivated a rich inner world that would become the wellspring of her extraordinary poetic voice. Her writing, though often private and introspective, speaks to universal themes of love, loss, and the search for meaning. Literary salons and gatherings were also becoming popular, providing a space for intellectual exchange and creative expression. These gatherings allowed writers and thinkers to share work, discuss ideas, and inspire one another. Though Dickinson rarely participated in such events, preferring solitude, the influence of these vibrant intellectual circles can also be felt in her work. Family life in the 19th century was a cornerstone of society, with a strong emphasis on duty, respect, and tradition. For Dickinson, her family was both a source of support and a constraint, a paradox that shaped her experiences and writing in profound ways. Her handwritten poems, often scribbled on scraps of paper and tucked away in drawers, reveal a mind constantly at work, grappling with everything from the natural world, with its cycles of growth and decay, to the mysteries of existence and the intricacies of human emotion. Her manuscripts, now treasured artifacts, echo the private life of one of America's greatest poets. Dickinson's letters, filled with wit, wisdom, and a keen observational eye, further illuminate her inner life, and correspondence sent to her from close friends and family confirm this profile of a woman deeply perceptive of the world around her, even while living in voluntary seclusion. Emily Dickinson was raised in the traditions of New England Puritanism, simplicity, hard work, and religious devotion, all ingrained from childhood. These values were a living, breathing part of daily existence, influencing thoughts, actions, and in Emily's case, even her poetry. Puritan self-examination and personal piety resonated in her introspective, often spiritual works. Her father, Edward Dickinson, was a successful lawyer and the treasurer of Amherst College. He was a man of ambition and influence, deeply involved in the civic and educational life of their town. His influence on Emily was profound, shaping her sense of duty and approach to life's challenges. His role at Amherst College brought a steady stream of scholars and intellectuals into their home, providing Emily with a rich tapestry of ideas and discussions. Edward's dedication to his work and community set a high standard for Emily, instilling responsibility and a drive for excellence. He cast a formidable figure, exhibiting strictness and a strong moral compass. Edward's stern demeanor and high expectations demanded discipline and order. Yet he also had a deep love for his family and a desire to see them succeed. Her mother, also named Emily, was a devoted homemaker but suffered ill health. Despite her frailties, she managed the household with grace and efficiency. Her quiet strength and resilience inspired her daughter, who often had to assume additional responsibilities at home, which helped foster young Emily's independence and self-reliance. For Emily, her father's sternness and her mother's gentleness provided a balanced environment, teaching her the importance of both strength and compassion. This duality is often reflected in her poetry, where themes of empowerment and vulnerability coexist. Education was highly valued in the Dickinson household. At first, Emily's took place at home, where she was taught by her parents and private tutors, and showed tremendous promise. Later, she attended Amherst Academy, a prestigious institution where she excelled in her studies, particularly in literature and composition. Her time at the school was formative, as she began to develop her unique voice and style as a writer. But then came a difficult academic experience. Emily spent a year at Mount Holyoke Female Seminary, a religious school focused on piety and domesticity. Its strict environment and rigid expectations were a stark contrast to the intellectual freedom of Amherst Academy, and she found the pressure to conform absolutely stifling. Dickinson's independent spirit yearned for a different path, one less defined by societal norms and more attuned to her own inner compass. She sought solace in her writing, where she could explore her thoughts and emotions freely. Her poetry became a means of self-expression and a way to challenge the constraints of her time. Through her words, she carved out a space where she could be true to herself, unbound by the expectations of tradition, religion, or society. The 19th century, often called the American Renaissance, saw a flourishing of American poetry as poets and writers sought to define an American voice, one distinct from European influences, reflecting cultural and social changes happening in their own backyard. Romanticism, with its emphasis on emotion, imagination, and the individual's experience, played a significant role in shaping this voice. Though at first a European movement, it found unique expression in America. Vast landscapes, frontier spirit, and the quest for individualism were a natural fit with romantic ideals, which American poets soon infused with their own unique style. Poets like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, William Cullen Bryant, and John Greenleaf Whittier became household names. Longfellow's narrative poems, Bryant's nature poetry, and Whittier's abolitionist verses captured the spirit of the age, commenting on and influencing social issues. Widely read and admired, and often memorized and recited in schools, such men were called fireside poets, because their works were considered also suitable for reading aloud around the family hearth, a testament to their broad appeal and pre-TV era role in literate American homes. Fireside poetry graced the pages of popular magazines and was recited at family gatherings. Bridging the gap between high art and popular culture, it made poetry an integral part of everyday life through its ability to connect with both intellectuals and common readers. Though undoubtedly familiar with the fireside poets, Emily's creative output veered sharply from all the conventions of her day. Unlike their work, her poetry was deeply personal, often exploring themes of death, immortality, and the inner workings of the mind. She eschewed the sentimentalism and overt moralizing that characterized much of the popular verse, instead confronting complex human existence with startling honesty and originality. Her poems were often short, with deliberately odd punctuation and capitalization, adding to their enigmatic quality. That courageously unique voice sets Emily apart from her contemporaries. Here's an example of her witty, modern style. "I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public like a frog. To tell your name the livelong day to an admiring bog." But her modernity went beyond mere style, because she daringly tackled subjects as confronting as mental illness. "I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through, and when they all were seated, a service like a drum kept beating, till I thought my mind was going numb." And she even, despite a highly programmed upbringing, dared to pit emerging science against religion with incisive, acerbic truth-telling. "Faith is a fine invention for gentlemen who see, but microscopes are prudent. In an emergency." What 19th century female poet would use critical thinking to jibe at their own Puritan world? Only Emily. Dickinson often focused her lens inward, examining the minute details of her own interior landscape with laser-like precision. Her ability to convey deep meaning in just a few lines has made her one of the most studied and admired poets in American literature. Her insights into folly and the frailty of the human condition are as relevant now as they were in her lifetime. While her socially precocious poetry would later secure her place among the literary giants, Emily Dickinson lived a remarkably secluded life. After her brief foray into the world beyond Amherst, she returned to her family home and gradually withdrew from society. By her mid-30s, she rarely left the confines of her house and garden, preferring the company of her thoughts, her writing, and a select few correspondents. In the last phase of her life, she is said to have kept to herself so much that when she did receive visitors, she conversed with them not face-to-face, but only through a partly open door. This self-imposed isolation, while sometimes misconstrued as a sign of eccentricity or possibly even madness, was actually, most Dickinson scholars now believe, a bold, deliberate choice. It allowed Emily Dickinson to cultivate the solitude she craved in order to prioritize her creative work, shielding her from the distractions and demands of social life. In her peaceful room and garden, she could explore the uncharted territories of her own mind, giving voice to her deepest fears, desires, realizations, and spiritual longings. This reclusive existence, far from stifling her creativity, became the crucible in which her unique poetic voice was unleashed. She died at the age of 55 from Bright's disease, a kidney disorder. Fewer than a dozen of her poems were published in her lifetime, but after her death, a treasure trove of almost 1,800 works was discovered. Now published and translated globally, they have assured Emily Dickinson's place as one of America's most unique and ahead-of-her-time poets. Do you know Emily's work? Do you have a favorite touching or cheeky Emily Dickinson poem or line? Please share your thoughts and comments on the Belle of Amherst with us in the comments section below.
Surely Emily Dickinson would have found kindred spirits among the remarkably modern-sounding and nature-loving poets of ancient China, whose work you can compare with hers by visiting episode 4.